Ryan Davies,
Yeah,
welcome to the show.
good to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
When we first met, you mentioned that you just released a poetry book,
Yes.
and you also mentioned that this was a very controversial thing for you to do.
It
And
was it was tricky. It was very left field. Not many people knew about it. My own parents actually didn't know until the book was written. They found out probably 3 months ago. Um, they had no idea that I actually wrote anything for the last 8 years. So obviously publishing and throwing a poetry collection from when I first started in 19 is a very personal thing. It's a big thing. It's remnants of me throughout, my early 20s that I'm just kind of throwing into the wind and hoping that people resonate with it. But it was something that I really wanted to do. And I thought that it's just I'm at that age where, or I'm at that time in my life where I think I don't really care about external factors. I think that's just it's a very important notation to have. A lot of people go through their 20s with this social media presence where they think they have to uphold this facade of being that guy. I was that person, like I first started my social media journey really pushing for fitness content when I first started the gym when I was 16. And I remember going to school and a lot of people, just kind of talking, not directly to me, but they would kind of say like, oh, like what Ryan's doing is very cringy. He's not big enough yet, all that stuff. The same kind of people are asking me for fitness advice now. So I think that that's a very important takeaway from the whole process of when you start something and it's fresh and it goes against the grain, people are going to talk. People are going to say things. They're going to be very vocal about it, but not to you. It's never to you personally. It's always behind your back. It's always, in the echoes, and you hear it. You hear people talking, and when you're young at an early stage, it does get to you, whether you like it or not. It does. You do think about it. You think about the stuff that you're putting out there. You're thinking, how many likes is this going to get? How many people are going to resonate? Are people going to share this or send it to the friends saying how cringy you are? All this stuff. But then you reach a stage where you actually just don't care anymore, because whoever does resonate with it, even if that's one person out of 1,000, it all makes it worthwhile. It all makes it worthwhile. So I really experienced that with the poetry book, because it was so random. I remember I dropped the whole I'm writing a book just randomly on like a Thursday afternoon on Instagram, and I had people calling me up saying, I didn't even know you wrote. And yeah, it was daunting because it was such a personal, private thing that I've kept so closely to me. But I just found, I think over a couple of years before the whole poetry book or collection came about, I would send things to people. They'd tell me, how they're feeling, and then if I had a piece of writing that kind of join that narrative of how they were feeling, I'd send it to them. And the positivity that I received from that was always great. It was always, this really helped. This really put into words what I was feeling that I wasn't able to do myself. And that kind of, it pushed me in the direction of publishing the poetry book, and just throwing it into the world and just seeing whoever was to read it, if they'd resonate with any of it, it would all kind of make it all worthwhile.
incredible, man. So you mentioned that you started writing at 19 and you're releasing it now at, how old are you now?
27.
27. So it's been in the books, in the publishing for 8 years. And throughout that time, nobody really knew about it, not even your parents.
Yeah. It's I think that's what made it scarier, because it was such a private thing for me to be doing. I think there was maybe 2 or 3 people that knew about it. Whether that would be a really close friend or a partner back in the day, they knew that I wrote things. But apart from that, not many people knew. And so the collection is essentially 8 years worth of writing, but I'd like to say the majority or the bulk of the book actually comes from the last 2 to 3 years, because I found that the last 2 to 3 years have been the most transformational years of my life thus far. But yeah, I think it was just something that I never, when I first started writing, never imagined I was going to publish a book. It was strictly therapeutic. It was kind of a way. It all started with a little bit of journaling, and then I found the beauty in tying certain words together, whether it would mean that it would rhyme or create like an essence of imagery. I found the beauty in that, so then I kind of worked towards that, and I think the idea of publishing only came about maybe a year and a half ago. And then I kind of just sat there and I said, I think I was writing up 2025 goals. And at the start of the year, I just was writing all these fitness goals. And then I thought, I need to have something that is not fitness related, because life is not 100% fitness. A lot of it is mental, and you need to take refuge in your passions, even if they're not physical endeavors. And I just jotted down, publish a book, and I didn't realize that I was actually going to. I think I think a lot of people write goals down with the anticipation to build up to them goals. Even if they don't achieve them goals, the journey is always worthwhile. But it was a very surreal feeling to put it down at the start of 2025 and finish 2025 with the publication of it. And it was. I wouldn't change the journey of the book in any way. It was all in. It was all in. It took every ounce of me to get that book out there, physically and mentally. I was spending perhaps way too long on it every single day, but I wanted it to be a reflection of myself. And I think, looking back at it now, it is everything that I wanted it to be, plus more.
Yeah. So your book started writing when you were 19, they're now 27. Are there any themes, and don't give away your book too much, we don't want any spoilers, but are there any themes that play a part from the beginning of that book, or perhaps the poems and passages that you were writing when you were 19 through the book to now? What's that story look like, and what's the story been from that 19 to 27? I heard you also said that these last 2 to 3 years, especially, you've been doing a lot more writing and a lot more self-development.
Of course, yeah. So the major themes that I kind of highlighted throughout the book cover, loss, grief, love, nature. They're kind of the core themes that I write about. In terms of writing about it when I was 19 to writing about it now, the themes are all the same. I think that's one thing that I've always been passionate about. I've always kind of been a relationship type of person, and I've always enjoyed nature and getting out and family, all them stuff. So the actual themes itself haven't changed. I think the extension of the themes have. So, love at 19 compared to love at 26, 27 is still love, don't get me wrong. However, it does come in different forms. And it can come as, all consuming, as opposed to when you're 19 and you're still kind of getting your feet in the ground in this new world out of high school. So to answer your question, I think the themes haven't changed. It's just my ability to write about them has changed, because you experience, from my experience, I've experienced all the themes that I was going through at 19 throughout the last 8 years, but I've just experienced them in a different format, in perhaps a different capacity.
Yeah. Could I ask you, whether it's in poetry or just in normal language, I don't know much about grief personally. In my lifetime, I've had, I think, all 4 of my great-grandparents, and now I don't have any, sadly, but not many people even have their parents.
Yeah.
Not many people have grandparents. I've I haven't had a pet died.
Mhm.
I don't know much about grief personally, and I'd love to hear your take on it, whether it is a poem that you have in the back of your mind or whether it's just an experience that you've gone through. What is grief taught
Look,
you?
I can't remember who said it, but I listened to a speech the other day, and this guy said that grief is the price you pay for love. And in a poem actually that I wrote in the book, it does extend that notion that grief is the aftermath of love. So to grieve something means that you loved it you loved it so fully that you now have to experience grief. And to me, grief and love are always going to be intertwined. They're always going to play a part in each other's existence, because you can't grieve something that you never loved. And that's just kind of the story behind grief. I think grief is just a different form of love that only exists after you experience the absence.
Yeah. Have you, and a bit of a personal question, but have you experienced much of that grief within your life?
Look, I think my first kind of experience of grief that really put me into a different mindset was back in 2021. So when people ask me, you know, like when did it all change or when did I start taking fitness a little bit more seriously, I always go back to 2021. And at the start of it, I was going through a pretty serious breakup. It was it took its toll on me in more ways than one. It wasn't just, you know, a loss of a partner. It was, I think it was the first time I really experienced a breakup to its full extent. And I think I remember there was a 2 to 3 month period where I'd stay up late. Actually, no, I'd go to bed as early as I could, and I'd stay in bed as late as I could, so I could minimize the days or the hours in the day. And I did that for 2 to 3 months. It was during COVID, and there wasn't really much to do anyway. But I just did not want to really kind of be awake to remember. And I found myself kind of slipping, and I slipped to a really, really low point. And then it kind of all got better. I met this girl online, and we were talking, and I remember I was working maybe 60, 70 hour weeks at this time, so I was really busy. But you know, like we were texting as much as we could, and we were speaking for probably 6 or 7 weeks, and then we finally found time to meet each other. You know, she lived an hour and a half away, but on this one particular night, she ended up being really close to me. So we ended up catching up, went to get donuts, and it was good. I remember on the way back from this donut place, we just started talking about all the things that we're planning on doing, and we're almost talking as if it was a collective kind of action plan. And we were saying like we'll go skydiving, all this cool stuff. And I remember, you know, saying goodbye to her that night, and she said, "I can't wait to do all this cool stuff with you." And that was 6 days before she committed suicide. And I found out 2 days after she left through her tagged Instagram photos. So I thought she just ghosted me. And I was messaging her. And I remember on the Friday night around 8:30 p.m., I went to tagged photos and I saw the in memories of. And I went from a low point, then meeting her, she brought me up. She gave me, it was the first kind of glimpse of hope that I had seen or felt in a while. I remember calling my friends after I dropped her home, and I said, I see it. I feel something again. And, you know, I could hear in his voice that he was happy. for me, because he's seen that, the last couple of months I haven't been there. And it was humbling, to say the least. I went from a low point to a high point to an even lower point. And that was probably the first experience of grief that I ever felt, because up until this point, it was the months leading up to that was really shit, and then it got good for just a fraction of a second, and then it kind of felt like the world just had it for me, like it brought me up just to bring me down lower. And that was probably the first time I ever really felt the full force of grief. And that's talking about a girl that I barely knew. I think that what holds her so close to me is the fact that she was the one to pull me out of such a dark space. And there's different. One thing during the whole process I found was there's different kind of periods of grief. At first, there's the initial shock of the absence. So you kind of go through, and there's nothingness. You don't feel like you feel sad all the time. And then there's the blame stage. You kind of sit there and you start picking apart your own life, picking apart their life. You start blaming yourself. You start blaming her. I sat there. There was weeks where I'm just like, how dare she meet me 6 days before she commits suicide? And then I sat there and I'm like, that's not fair. I can't pick apart someone that's no longer here to explain themselves. And then I started picking apart myself, and I said, I blamed myself for months and months, because, I was saved by a girl that I barely knew, but I wasn't able to do the same for her. And it was just, it was chaos. I didn't know where to go from that kind of moment. And then, it took me a while to kind of get through that.
That's incredible, man. What was the turning point?
The turning point was, look, I remember the turning point clear as day. I remember it was about a week after she passed, and I spent the entire week crying, sobbing. Nobody knew how to comfort me, because nobody knew about this girl, because it was just, for the most part, it was just this online kind of connection that we had. And none of my friends knew her personally. I couldn't really speak to anyone about her. My parents, they saw me sad and they tried their best. My sister tried their best, but in reality, this was a hole that only I could kind of dig myself out of. And I remember staring myself in the mirror, and I had tears strolling down my face. And I thought of the notion that energy can be transferred or transformed. And I thought to myself, what if I could change all this sadness, all this negativity that I'm feeling inside, to at least something positive for the time being, until I can figure out what to do with it. I remember I ran my first ever marathon about 10 days after she passed. I had no prior training to it. I think the furthest distance I ran prior to the marathon was the week before, which was 22 kilometers.
Yeah.
And then I think 10 days later, I just packed a little backpack, a couple of biscuits, no proper fueling. I just went out and just ran.
Yeah.
And
with the plan to do a marathon?
Yeah, I just I said, I'm going to clock a marathon today. And went out, and I think I timed it at 4 hours on the dot. And I remember running out of water probably at 30 Ks, and I was in the middle of nowhere, so didn't have any water for the last 12 Ks. And I remember hitting the wall. So there's the term hitting the wall in kind of the physical side of things, is where your glycogen gets depleted, and your body's not replenishing it as fast as it's being used. And a lot of people like to say that they hit the wall when they start cramping. But when you hit the wall, it's like this all-consuming. You go nauseous, you go dizzy. Every part of you just starts cramping, and you collapse. Like, you can't really keep moving after you hit the wall. And I remember at 35 Ks, I hit the wall, and I collapsed face first on concrete. Had scabs all over my knees for weeks. And I remember my face was in the ground, and all I could think about was this girl. And just the thought kind of just dragged me up, and I just kept going. I hit the wall again at 39K or something, and then just kept kind of pushing through, and I finished it. And then I think that was a major realization. It's like, I can do this just through sheer mental strength. And even if I wasn't physically prepared for this, I can still do it. So that was the first kind of physical achievement that I had post this big event in my life that made me realize a lot of things.
Incredible. So you had pain, you had adversity. It's a fucked up situation, man. I'm truly sorry that happened.
Look, it's one of them things. I think, seeing for what it is now, as much as I wish she was still here, I wish it didn't take all of this for me to realize. It's the collateral beauty in traumatic situations. It's the positives that happen after so much negative that I think really gets you through and makes you realize that you're meant to go through things for a reason. I have faith, so I trust in God's every kind of direction in life, and I kind of found myself really realizing it was the realization that you go through things for a reason. You know, if you ask God for strength, He's not going to give you a magic pill. He's going to give you adversity. He's going to give you trials and tribulations, and trust that you take them in full stride, and you go through them, and you become a stronger person.
I completely agree. I just want to reiterate what you just said. When you ask for strength, you're not going to just get strength in that situation. You need to go through pain, and the universe, God, is going to not provide you with strength, but provide you with the option to create strength through pain and adversity.
Yeah.
And after this whole situation happened, 10 days later, you went out and ran a marathon after only running 22 Ks. And most of that would have just been, as you said, like from mental, not actual physical, strength, but just through spirit and soul pushing you. And I'm sure also there was no other option at one point. If you'd face planted, you were already probably too far away. There was no option.
Of course, no. It's one of those things. I think, it's another kind of mental strength that you can tap into when you are in these kind of physical environments. When you set out to do, whether it's a marathon, half marathon, ultra marathon, 100K, when you set out to do something like that, it puts you in a position, it puts you against the wall. And the easy option is to sit down, call a medic, call someone over to pick you up, and you can go home. There's not really anything stopping you from doing that. But then there's always going to be the what ifs. There's always going to be the perhaps, I'm not built for this. Maybe I wasn't strong enough to do it. And I've never, up until that point, perhaps I was kind of like that. I was a little softer than I was. But then after that point, I said to myself, no, this is something that I've set myself or said to myself that I'm going to do. And it really does come down to how much you want it. If you're willing to pay the price of achieving these goals, then you're going to achieve anything you kind of pursue in life in general. It's just whether you want it enough.
Whether you want it enough.
Yeah, pretty much. And that day I wanted to get that done. And, all the physical signs of exhaustion, cramps, injury were showing. But it's one of the things I remember saying to myself that day that I will die before I not finish this run. And that kind of sentiment of I will die for this has taken me through so many other physical challenges. And I think it's a very powerful sentiment because, look, when you look at it from a logical standpoint, the likelihood of you actually dying is a lot less than you might think. You might not feel like that. You might be in so much pain that you think you are going to die. But when you're in that kind of pain cave and you're sitting there saying, "I will die for this," you'll get to the end of it. You'll get to the end of it, and I think that was the first. So the marathon was the first kind of time I experienced that. Definitely wasn't the last time. And that really set me up to direct myself in a more of a physical manner. It did perhaps come as a little bit of a toxic trait after that. I think I really hyperfixated on fitness being my outlet for a while. I wasn't riding nearly as much during this stage of my life. I was going to the gym probably 2-3 hours a day for, I think I clocked in 9 months straight every single day. That covered New Year's, Christmas. I wasn't drinking as well. I went sober for 2 years because after all this happened, I really wanted to feel it. I didn't want to numb it in any way, and I think alcohol is a very good numbing agent. So I chose not to drink for 2 and a bit years, and that moment was really pivotal and very, very important to the person I've become over the last couple of years.
Incredible. And do you feel like that built momentum for you? Like
yes.
Doing the marathon and proving to yourself just how strong you are?
Yeah, for sure. It put into my mind that of just what's achievable. I think a lot of people, when they first start their running journey, they see a marathon, they see a half marathon as this very distant goal. And it was almost like I bypassed a lot of the work that a lot of people think that you need to get to that point. And that's not me saying that you shouldn't train for any of these physical events. That's probably one of my biggest flaws or vices is I don't train for many of the events that I do because I got very cocky in terms of knowing that I did, the marathon off pretty much zero training to an ultra marathon a year and a bit later, off pretty much zero training. It was it's like one of them. It's one of them things like it makes you realize just what you are capable of and just how reachable things are that you put, all these events on this pedestal. And when you do an event that's half the size or a quarter of the size, you're like, shit, like I'm a quarter of the way there or 25% there. And that's with no training or less training than I do in the future. And that really put in my mind what I was able to do. And really set me up for a lot of the other physical kind of achievements that I've achieved over the last couple of years.
Amazing. And you mentioned a time in your life that I can very much relate to as well, when you said you went into this kind of a toxic trait where you hyperfixated on your fitness for 2-3 hours a day for 9 months straight. I did the same thing after a breakup. I was doing many things, a lot of drugs and alcohol and very self-destructive. But then when I started to get better and wean my way off cocaine and alcohol, I started replacing with pre-workout and so much pre-workout and coffee, and was doing runs and then 3-hour workouts every single day. And it was still the same pattern as my habit with drugs and alcohol, of coping and trying to avoid the real problem, or my body trying to tell me and scream that I needed to feel what I needed to feel. I needed to bring that all up and actually cry and move my body in ways that are needed. What does that look like for you? Do you feel like you've moved past, I know you're obviously still into fitness and that's amazing, but do you feel like you've moved through this toxic trait of fitness where we need to cope and mask the problems? And how did that feel for you? What was the turning point to feeling?
Look, I went through something quite similar. So prior to, 2021, all these events, I was doing all the same thing, partying, drugs, alcohol, coming home, 2 days later. You go through it. And then I think when you hyperfixate on something that is significantly better for you physically, it's like a tightrope. It's like, what side of the fence do you want to be on? If you're going to hyperfixate on something, you'd prefer it to be something that's going to put you in good stride in terms of fitness. I think fitness, for the most part, a lot of people do hyperfixate on fitness because it is significantly better than going out and getting drunk and doing drugs. But I think there is that fine line. And I think that took me years to realize, where there's a fine line between enjoying fitness and just doing fitness as a coping mechanism. I'm definitely in the enjoyment stage of fitness at the moment. Have been for quite some time, which is good. It did take me quite a while to get out of that phase of just doing as much as I can, as often as I can, because I wanted to feel something. It is like it's like this this
You
shift.
feel like it was because you wanted to feel like you're in control?
Yes, yeah, that's a very good point to make. I think it definitely gave me fitness was something that I could control, and it gave me this idea of discipline. Like you could go, even when I was sick, I had this workout that would take me maybe 45 minutes that I could do in my bedroom, and it was just push-ups, sit-ups. That's it. And I'd force myself, as bad as I might feel, or as sick as I might feel, I'd force myself to do that workout, even if I couldn't go to the gym. And that was it was my idea of discipline. It was this thing that I could control, that I could incorporate into my life, that was consistent. It was perhaps the only consistent thing that I had in my life for a while. But then there comes the notion that there's discipline in knowing when not to do something. I think that was my favorite kind of thing that I found in fitness is you have to really listen to your body. You have to really know what is going to benefit you, because when you take away when you take away the idea of getting fitter or getting stronger, you need to understand rest, and you need to understand that there needs to be rest in your fitness routine. Otherwise, you're going to just be commanding or demanding so much from your body and not giving your body what it needs to get stronger and fitter. And you end up overtraining, you end up declining health-wise. And it was a really tough kind of thing to figure out, because it took so long. Because when you're talking about something that's such a hyperfixation, it's hard to change your habits when it becomes so ingrained into your daily routine. It's hard to change. But then it just takes that moment of realization that just happens in a split second, where you just realize, okay, well, fitness is meant to be enjoyable. It's meant to be bettering me physically and mentally as well. But you need to know when to not do something.
Yeah. And when you started to shift that from that coping mechanism to more so something that you enjoy and that you love, that gives back to your body, do you feel like any of these emotions or past experiences begin to show themselves in new light? Obviously, when we do a marathon and huge workouts, at least for me, many times they've come back up and I've used them as fuel, as anger, as strength. But then on the other side of that, when I've entered states of softness, whether in conversation or meditation or other contemplative practices, it's been a very different experience where I've still needed to feel different parts of it. Has that been similar with you?
Yes. I think so. It's said, or it's spoken about in David Goggins' first book,
Yeah.
Can't Hurt Me. It's one of my favorite all-time books. When I say that book changed my life, I actually started reading it, I think 3 days prior to my first marathon, because I needed to, read something that came from someone that was so high on this pedestal. And I wanted to kind of read more about him. And I think the first thing that I kind of read was this notion of don't feel sorry for yourself. Keep moving, keep doing something. And, on the back of this book, I went out and ran my first marathon. And going back to the question, I think it speaks on a cookie jar.
Yeah.
And, this metaphor of a cookie jar of all these experiences, and you can kind of stockpile these traumatic events in this cookie jar. And when you're doing something physical, when you're doing something in life, you can kind of go back and refer to this cookie jar and just pick a cookie out and kind of think about it, use it as fuel, and you can kind of store it away. And I think that that's definitely something that I've been doing over the last couple of years. And I think it is necessary. It's necessary to be able to tap into that hardship that you once felt. And you might not be feeling it now, but it's important to know and realize and remember how you did feel one time. And I've used that as fuel to get through some significantly harder events than a marathon. I think I ran my first 106K ultra through the Blue Mountains in 2022.
Oh.
And I did that off no training. I had wrist surgery that year, so I lost a lot of weight. I lost 17 kilos in 3 months. And I went into this event so underprepared. I remember I went to the pub with my mate Tim the night before, and we had a few too many beers. And I rocked up to the start line at 6 a.m. the next day, thinking it was going to be something I could just get through. And I thought about the mental aspect of it, and then I just thought that I could piggyback off this cookie jar. And then that put me in a different spot. I think my legs started to give out, and I started to cramp at around 22 kilometers in. And I remember sitting down at 22 Ks in, and had all these people running past, and they're just like, "Oh, like, you okay, man? You all right?" I had my head down in shame because I'm 22 Ks into a 106 kilometer run.
Wow.
And I'm sitting there, I'm like, I've got 80 something Ks to go. Like, what do I do from this? And I remember picking myself up, and I was just texting my mate Tim. I was like, I can't do this, man. Like,
Was he also running?
No, he was just running support crew.
Yeah.
Him and my family. Okay, you might as well been. But I remember texting him, and he replied back saying, "You're finishing this." No, you can quit if you want. He just replied back saying, "Don't be silly. You're finishing this." And I remember looking at my watch, I think at around 30 Ks, and I started calculating in my head because I was just pace walking at this point because I couldn't run. Every time I started running, I'd start cramping again. So I remember looking at my watch and doing the math of if I walk at this pace with no rest or breaks or stopping for the rest of the race, how long will it take? And I remember realizing it was going to take another 16 hours of just pace walking through the middle of nowhere, beautiful Blue Mountains. And that it was like this brick wall of, am I going to really do this? Because I'm able to do it. I'm just going to do it slow. I have to do it slow. I have to really take into account what I'm able to do in the moment. And that was just pace walk. But can I do that for 16 hours straight? And there comes a voice in your head that you only experience in their moments. And it was really weird. It's the only time in my life where I've ever experienced this other secondary, whatever it is, this different voice in my head, where it really kind of pushed this narrative of, you finish this race, otherwise you die trying. Because the more I thought about that statement, the more I thought about the concept of, if I was to quit before finishing that race, part of me dies anyway. This more mental, like metaphorical, abstract side of me dies. Like I'm gonna finish that race, or if I pull out early, part of me dies. So that narrative of pushing myself through hell for 16 hours, not speaking to anyone. There's a lot of so over the course of 100-something Ks, the field spread of participants becomes very, very thin. So there was maybe 5-6 hours where I wouldn't see another person. I wouldn't talk to anyone. I didn't take headphones. So I was just in the middle of the bush, middle of the night, just listening to the world. And I did that on purpose. I knew that it was going to be a very big mental conversation. I never understood the notion of a secondary voice until I experienced it. But going into the race, I think I realized that I wanted to really pull myself and make it harder. I'd chase kind of challenges. And I knew going in without the option of music, without the option of a phone call, it would make it a lot harder. So it kind of leads, it stems to one of my other all-time favorite quotes is, "Who are you when no one else is watching?" And I was in that race and nobody was around me. Nobody was there to talk to me. No one was there to praise or tell me that I'm doing a good job. It was just me, myself, and I. And I really thought about that. And I took that with every step and just thought, this is the kind of stuff that I need to do by myself to become the person I want to be. And going through that race, going through that brick wall that I kind of set myself up at 30 Ks, I finished, I think in 19 hours. So it was a long time to just be out there, not really talking to many people, on your feet, not really drinking or eating nearly as much as I should. This was my first ever ultra marathon. I ended up spending half the day in hospital the next day for severe dehydration. But I remember feeling that was the first time in my life where I met a physical obstacle and really thought, I really had doubts on whether I was going to be able to finish it. And that's when I found that secondary version of myself that kind of took charge and said, no, you can finish it.
Yeah.
And that was another kind of light bulb moment that happened that was even more powerful than the first marathon that I ran. And there's just been so much happening since then. It's just, I think that really, I really needed that moment of weakness in that race to sit me down metaphorically and tell me that I'm not this. I can't, maybe I can't do something. Maybe something is actually unobtainable. And that was the first time I've ever kind of experienced that. And it was a very, very, very powerful moment.
So David Goggins notes this voice as his Goggins voice.
Yeah.
That second voice that, from what I remember, he notes this voice is formed from times of pain and adversity. This voice is formed from, like a marathon, it's formed from that voice that knows that when you are pushed to your limits, that you can push through and so much further than you ever thought imaginable. Do you feel like that was the voice for you? Do you feel like you formed that second voice through proving to yourself that you can challenge adversity, that you can adopt this mindset of, I'm done when I'm dead?
Yeah, I think so. I've only experienced the voice once.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what I'm chasing now. I'm chasing that that secondary voice. And so that was the first ultramarathon I did. In my second ultramarathon, which was the Cosy 100, never experienced that voice. I kind of, went through the whole race, still no headphones, still no music, not really talking to many people, but it was a lot easier than the first time because I knew it was all kind of familiar terrain. It was all the things that I've kind of felt through before and have gotten through. So there's not one part of me that really said that I might not be able to finish this race. And I think that that's when that, like you said, the Goggins voice or that secondary voice really comes into play and is accessible. It's when you really don't think that you can finish something. And to me, that first ultramarathon was the first time I ever experienced it. And I think that since then, I've just been chasing it. And I just haven't really been choosing the right events or choosing something that's big enough or hard enough to experience that. And I've got a few events this year planned to really put myself back into that kind of darkness and really try and force that secondary voice out. So that'll be a very interesting thing to see if it does come to light.
Yeah, our biggest learnings through our shadows there.
For sure. Very good point.
What else have you learned from your shadows?
Oh God,
Everything. Yeah.
It bleeds into everything.
Yeah.
It really does. I think to understand the darkness and the shadows and the pain and the trauma really puts into light the light, the beauty, the love, everything that's enjoyable in life and that we're yearning for is really extenuated from the darkness, from the sad times really amplify the happy times. And I think it's just a kind of a life lesson that I've learned along the way, where you start to appreciate the things that you have because you know that you didn't have it once upon a time. I think that's a really important kind of notion to take every single day. It's something that you can't really forget. Otherwise, you're kind of you're setting yourself up for failure. It's in everything. It is life as a whole. I think the beauty of life is that it ends.
Yeah.
As cliche as that sounds, I think we all have this deadline that we have no idea when it is. We all have this deadline, and it's what you do in the interim that really counts. I think that that's something that I learned back in 2021, where Tess committed suicide, was that life is fragile, life is short, and it really pushed this idea in my head that if I'm going to achieve all the things that I want to achieve, then there's no waiting on it. There's no waiting for validation. There's no waiting for the right moment. It's now. Yeah. It's now, or it could be never.
Incredible, man. I'd love to take a moment for you to even just take a breath for yourself. And I want to ask you the question, with you releasing this book and now also your social media, trying to blow that up, and you're doing an absolutely incredible job with it. What is the message that you are driving forward, and who is it for?
Okay. I think the messaging behind everything I'm doing now is that you can be authentic. You don't have to fall into these societal ideals of what you should, shouldn't, can, can't do. And that life is too short to play it safe. Life is too short to have these dreams that you may never achieve because you're not taking the necessary steps towards them. I think that's, if someone was to look at my social media a year from now, that's the message I want them to receive. I want them to see me as just this normal dude, this normal guy that came from a town that probably no one knows about, that has done all these cool things, like, break a world record, or I haven't done that yet, but that's this year's goal. Break a world record, publish 2 books, all these things. I want them to see that as obtainable. I want them to realize that I'm just this very ordinary dude that, I don't come, my parents aren't millionaires. My parents aren't Olympic athletes. I'm just, I started it. I had to build the foundations. I had to build the foundations and really kind of push through and do the things and take action towards the life that I wanted to live. And I think that that's the message I want to kind of portray to the world. I want to show people that they can do quite literally anything that they want to do. It just takes that first step, that first jump into the unknown. Because I think everyone's scared of the unknown. Everyone's scared of that validation kind of period where, it's weird. I was speaking to my friend about it. It's like, it becomes less awkward when you have more followers, which is crazy. Is crazy because you've got more people watching you. And you think that with more people watching you and judging you on the things that you're doing, it would be more awkward. But it's not. It's that starting point, that liminal stage of, pushing towards something that you want, but also no longer being the person that you were. It's that awkward stage where you might only have 100 followers and people don't take you seriously. But when you're suddenly validated when you have 50,000 followers, it's a really weird thing, but that's just what society has kind of promoted in the last couple of years, and that's just how it is. But I want to show people that, they can really do anything.
Incredible, man. And one last thing, I would love to take a moment for you to go back to that version of yourself who, Tess, that's her name?
Yep.
You just found out she just passed away. If you could go back to that moment with all the wisdom and everything you know now, what might you say to yourself in that moment?
Oh, God.
You can take your time for that. Whoa.
Bang. If I could meet that 22-year-old on a Friday night, sitting in his bedroom, I'd probably tell him to focus on the collateral beauty, to focus on life. I think it was, it took me a long time to really focus on the collateral beauty. That's one of my favorite sentiments, by the way, as well. Like it's a beautiful movie with Will Smith in it, but collateral beauty, I think the whole idea of it is finding the beauty in the tragic. And it took me a while to realize, but there is genuinely beauty in everything. When you go to a funeral, you might be grieving someone, but it's also beautiful because you've got so many people grieving the same person. You've got so many people in one spot sharing the same amount of love for one person. I think that's a beautiful thing. So that's the collateral beauty about funerals. In everything that we go through in life, there's collateral beauty to be found. And it just took me so long to realize that. And yeah, if I could meet myself back at 22, I'd tell him to really just focus on the collateral beauty.
Incredible, brother. So you just released a new book. What is that called?
It's called Petrichor. It's tattooed on my arm. I wanted to use this as like a marketing strategy, but it's also the book means a lot to me. So it made sense to put it on my arm. Petrichor means the smell of rain, which is just a beautiful word as a whole, because I think the reason behind calling a poetry book Petrichor is that everyone experiences and for the most part loves petrol. I've never met someone that has smelt rain and thought, yuck. Everyone smells rain and thinks, man, that's a beautiful smell. And the fact that they don't understand or know that that is called petrichor is what poetry is all about. I think it's the experience of something, but not knowing how to collate it in words. And it's just the beauty behind it is just so abstract that it was when I thought about it, because petrichor has been my favorite word for years, but when I really thought about what petrichor meant and the idea of me explaining the smell of rain as petrichor, you know, for years before the book even came about, I remember I'd go out with my friends and be like, oh man, that smells great. And someone would say, oh, can you smell the rain? I'm like, oh, it's actually called petrichor. And every single person I told about petrichor, they didn't know what it was called. And to me, that it was an easy title for the book, because poetry to me is just a collection of feelings and emotions that you might not understand until you read it and until you see it in word form.
Incredible, brother. And where can we find these books?
So I'm selling petrichor on ryandaviespodetry.com. It's my own website. So I've self-published the book. Been doing all the wrapping and the thank you letters handwritten. It's been a tiring journey, but it's been a journey that I have enjoyed every step of the way.
Incredible. And that you just released them in December?
December 15th is when petrichor officially released. I actually had to slow down marketing just after Christmas because I sold out of all my physical copies I had on hand.
Hey.
So it was a really surreal moment. It was very surreal to realize that it took off in a way that I never expected. And I had random people, strangers, complete strangers messaging me individual pages of the book after they purchased it, and they were telling me just how much it meant to them to read that page on their day. And I think that that's what it was all about. You know, it was, to me, that was what I was going for, but the capacity that has actually happened it's blown all my expectations of the book initially out of the water. It's worked out tenfold better than I was ever expecting, and I'm just keen to see where it truly goes and can go. So I'm planning another book for this year. That'll probably drop later on in the year. I've already started it. I think it's surreal. Like when you see people. So I also I do street poetry as well. So I also have pasted a few pieces on the walls of Hosier Lane, and it's another surreal feeling to actually get tagged in the post, because I'll have my Instagram caption at the bottom, and I've had a few people tag and take photos of the pieces I've put on the wall and just tag them on Instagram. And it's that's just another kind of extension of this whole journey of mine. It's just so fresh. It's something that I've never kind of experienced before, but it's just very, very enjoyable because I'm very passionate about it. So it was something I was never really expecting to take charge as much as it has, but it's definitely something that I wish to pursue more of in the near future.
That's an epic journey, brother. Thank you so much for just joining me for this chat. Thank you so much for coming all the way out here to South Yarra, especially after only meeting just once, last week.
Yeah, I know. It was only last week, wasn't it?
Something like that.
But no, I think thanks for inviting me. I love what you're doing with all your breathwork stuff and the podcast as well. I think it's important to share people's journeys and share the ordinary people, the people that, you know, not many people might have heard of. I think that's an important kind of thing to do. So good job with that. I hope it absolutely explodes on social media. But thanks for inviting me. It's a beautiful day as well. Like what a spot you've chosen. Unreal. I don't think I'd ever come here if you didn't ask me. So I didn't even know this place existed.
Me neither until I found it.
Oh, there you go.
Secret little spot. Thank you so much for joining me, brother.
No, I appreciate it, man.
And if you have one thing to let this little show off with, it was find the
Collateral beauty.
collateral beauty.
Yes.
Find the collateral beauty.
Find the collateral beauty. I think that's actually quoted in the movie. So
TM.
TM. But yeah, I think realistically, there's collateral beauty in absolutely anything. And if you're going through a hard time now, I urge you to seek the collateral beauty.
Thank you, Ryan. You're the man.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Bro, that was unreal. Oh, actually, that was unreal, man. Thank you for having me.
Epic, bro.
Oh, what a conversation. That was so